I have a confession to make. I recently watched
Project Hail Mary.
Project Hail Mary.
and I cried over a rock.
Amaze.
But there's something about this movie I couldn't let go of. Rocky, this alien, it doesn't speak with words. He doesn't even speak with sounds we'd recognize as language. He speaks in chords, in musical tones. This got me thinking, late night rabbit hole thinking. We have roughly 7,000 languages on this planet, and they are all incredibly different. They sound different, they look different, they feel different. But at their core, they all follow the same basic architecture. Vowels, consonants, physical shapes made by air passing through a human throat. But what if you stripped all of that away? What if you took the human out of the equation entirely? Is it possible to make a language only out of pitch? No B sounds, no S sounds, just frequency? Music? And if possible, could I do it? Okay, so pitch. Pitch is just air, vibrating fast or slow. Fast vibrations, high pitch. Slow vibrations, low pitch. That's it. That's basically the whole physics. But here's the thing, there's more to language than physics. Language? It's an agreement. Two brains, one signal. A shared decision that this specific thing means this specific thing. How do we attach meaning to music? Well, it starts here. I'm sure you see where this is going. 7 notes, the heptatonic scale. Each note represents a pitch. Now, I think the most obvious route is to just take a word and assign it a pitch, like similar to how we do it with the note. So like an A is this. Well, what if ant was also this? Now, I could sit here and manually go through every single word and assign it a pitch, but I don't know that many words. Now I know what you're saying. I could just use a dictionary. But that's silly. There's a better way. What we need is a mathematical way to represent words. And luckily, this already exists. Have you ever wondered how ChatGPT makes sense of human words? Well, to understand how AI mathematically represents words, I'm going to hand it off to someone who could explain it way better than I really ever could.
You see, when tools like ChatGPT process text, the first thing they do is subdivide it into little pieces, and they associate each piece with a large vector, some long list of numbers. This is called an embedding of that piece of text, and it's helpful to imagine these embedding vectors as directions in some very high-dimensional space, even if we struggle to concretely visualize anything more than 3 dimensions. Models that learn to embed words as vectors like this often encode meaning into the directions of this high-dimensional space. If you take the embedding of Italy minus Germany and you add it to the embedding of Hitler, you get something very close to the embedding of Mussolini. It's as if the model learned to associate some directions in this high-dimensional space with Italianness and others with World War II Axis leaders.
Now, we can use these vectors to help guide us and kind of help assign a pitch to each word. My first instinct was to simply collapse this long vector into a single number using a tool called PCA. Think of PCA as like a tool you can kind of use to collapse big data into smaller sets. Here's an example. Imagine you had a vector. Now, a vector could be something as simple as a list. In this case, let's say it's a list of hours studied, sleep, and coffee intake. Now, you could track all 3. These are 3 variables. But in reality, more studying might correlate to more coffee and less sleep. So we can actually capture most of the variation with just one dimension, our hours studied. So my thought was to lower our word embeddings, our vector, to just one number, one dimension. And this number, this single dimension, would be our pitch. And that's what PCA would allow us to do. And here's the result. So this is our pitch line. And as you can see, we have a lot of clustering around one particular area. Obviously not good. This is like every word in English looking and sounding the same. You know how like non-English speakers complain about though, through, thought, thorough, tough? Now, imagine a language where every word was like that. That's basically what I just created. So we need a different approach. I was thinking, what if we could give our algorithm kind of like a head start? So here's my next idea. We pick 50, let's call them anchor words. Now, we will go through and manually assign each of these words an emotional position. Music, peace, those will be at the calm end of the spectrum. And then words like war and kill, a little bit more intense, a little bit crazier, will be at the other end of the spectrum. Now, for every other word in the dictionary, we can find its nearest anchor word. So harmony lands near music and melody because it was close to that in vector space. And this actually works decently well. And I'm not just saying that because my name just so happens to line up with beauty. But look, if I look up father, it's more toward the intense end, and then mother ends up kind of like near the calmer end. And I like, to me that sort of makes sense, right? Like I feel like dad's a little bit more, I don't know, intense. Mom's a little bit more chill. And obviously it's not perfect. We get words like plague, which lands near harmony and calm. But it works decently well for most other words. Like, for example, destruction. That lands right near storm. I mean, to me that makes total sense. Okay, so I think the obvious next thing to do would be to start making some sentences. Let's see if this could actually work as a language. All right, so I made this thing. We can start typing in sentences here, and it'll craft our pitch, our sentences, and it'll play it fully out loud. I think the most obvious thing to start with is hello world. World. There we go. Okay, so when I click this button, we can go ahead and hear it. That's not bad. That honestly, it sounds kind of alien. It could sound like Rocky to me. And this axis represents our pitch. So words higher in pitch are going to be those associated with danger. Lower is going to be calmer words. So how about something from the movie? Rocky says, "We are not alone." That was like kind of a heartfelt moment. Okay, so that's interesting. So we does not have an embedding. We don't find a word, but we're able to see words for everything else. So let's hear that. So it's kind of interesting. There's not much variation between pitches here. So it's like kind of across the same pitch, but you could still distinguish the notes. Even though R and not are only like 20 hertz apart here, but you could still hear the difference. Listen to that. Totally. Let's see if we can't get like a more dramatic pitch variation, like something along danger. So let's try look out for enemies. So I'm doing this one hand here. Okay, yeah, there we go. So let's see. So look at that. You can hear it. There's like a rise in pitch, which you would kind of do anyways as like a human. If there was like danger or something bad going on, you would almost raise your pitch. So this is like kind of instinctively following that. Let's see if we can't do the other end. So friends is neutral, but friend is more positive. So that's kind of interesting. We're getting a lot of like interesting embeddings from our algorithm. What about like a sentence you might say every day, like you're ordering something at like McDonald's, the Big Mac. Look at that, dude. We got a mountain here. Oh, I also misspelled the. Oh, that was probably why. That's funny that is an embedding. TAHE. I don't think that's a word, but we is not. Anyways, let's listen to this. Oh, I just noticed that have and the are the same pitch. That's a problem I was thinking about, is that what if there are words with the same embedding, and how close could the pitches be when you could still discern a difference? Let's listen to that again. Yeah, so like here, there's no difference. Like if I was learning this language, this would be a problem. What about something a little bit crazier? What about like the Declaration of Independence? Let's see what that sounds like. Oh my gosh. All right, so tons of pitch variation. Let's start playing that. Oh my god. It does sound like an alien talking though. Like I could totally see an alien who talks in like musical tones. This is what they would sound like to me. I mean, maybe there'd be a little bit more melody, but the other thing I wanted to do was to translate existing music into our language and see maybe if the artists were trying to tell us something subliminal. I think this will work best with classical pieces. I just because those are easy to translate into just bare notes. The easiest one to start with would be Ode to Joy, which sounds like this. So I think most people have heard it. So I made this application, I just uploaded the file. Okay, so on the left is all our notes decomposed, and then on the right is the translation. I mean, okay, immediately looking at this, there's tons of repeats, and it makes no sense. So obviously this Beethoven guy was not very smart, but let's go ahead and play this. That's funny, you can still hear the song. I'm honestly super surprised. I mean, this is only pitch. Okay, so obviously, I don't think Beethoven was trying to tell us anything here. But, well, I mean, maybe he was, and we're just not seeing the message. Okay, so that was not bad. Let's try another piece. Okay, so here it is. A little bit more variation. I'm seeing something about galaxies here, so that's a better sign. A little bit more variety with the words. You know, this guy's name was Debussy. Sounds like a smart guy. Let's go ahead and play that though. So right off the bat, it's like super hard to hear what it's supposed to sound like. The tempo's wrong, the melody's wrong. I mean, this is just straight pitch. You can kind of hear it here. This is what it was supposed to sound like. Obviously, it sounded nothing like that. Okay, so there are a few issues with my language. First, I kind of stole all the grammatical rules from English. My language is basically starting on third base and pretending to be its own thing. Really, all it is like a fancy language encoder. And it's really no different than something like Pig Latin. Finally, what I created could barely be called music. Music has melody, harmony, dynamics, timbre, texture, and form. Mine only has pitch. That's why when I translated Clair de Lune or even Ode to Joy, you could barely make out what the song was. But as a skeleton language, I honestly don't think it's that bad. If you come up with a better encoding method for including those other systems of music, like melody, like timbre, all those sorts of different things, I think you could come up with something that's actually pretty special. So honestly, I think an alien would sound more like the language we made than some grand, complicated symphony like For a Leash. But anyways, I'm a small channel, so appreciate it if you liked the video, give me your thoughts in the comments, and even subscribe. Thanks.